Do you know that most of the challenges in life aren't about what happens to us, but how we face them? What if I told you there's a way to endure all difficulties without being knocked down? Would you be willing to try it? In this video, I'm going to share 6 Stoic methods from Seneca screeds that have helped millions rise stronger amidst life's storms. Now, let's dive into how Stoic philosophy can change the way you perceive the world and develop the mental strength to overcome any challenge. Method 1. Focus on one task at a time. Surely, you've experienced the frustration of working on something only to suddenly remember another task that needs your attention. Or, while researching a topic, you get distracted by your phone, emails, or social media notifications. This scenario happens daily, but have you ever wondered how it affects your productivity and the quality of your work? Seneca, one of the greatest philosophers of Stoicism, offers a simple yet powerful piece of advice. To keep your mind from being scattered, you must live in the present and focus on one task at a time. It sounds easy, but in reality, it is not. We live in an age where distractions and interruptions are constant. Picture your day starting with checking emails, followed by a phone call, and then getting sucked into social media. You bounce from one task to another without actually completing anything fully. This not only reduces productivity, but also leaves us feeling tired and stressed. Why is this happening? When our minds aren't focused on a single task, productivity drops significantly. When we try to multitask, our attention is divided, and as a result, we can't effectively complete any task. Research has shown that our brains aren't designed for multitasking. Switching from one task to another takes time to reorient, which results in more time spent on finishing the task. Seneca understood this and believed that focusing on one task at a time is the key to real success. When you focus entirely on the task at hand, you'll not only complete it with higher quality, but also feel more satisfied when you see the final results. Indeed, completing a task with full concentration brings greater satisfaction than finishing multiple tasks with poor quality. Imagine reading a book without being distracted by phone notifications. You understand every word, every paragraph, and truly appreciate the value of it. When you dedicate your full attention to the book, not only do you finish reading more efficiently, but you also gain a deeper understanding of the content, allowing you to improve your critical thinking skills. However, how can you implement this in real life when work and interruptions are always present? First, you need to recognize that distractions are an inevitable part of modern life, but the important thing is that you can control and minimize them. One of the simplest and most effective ways is to focus on one task at a time. When you start a task, give it your full attention. Turn off phone notifications, step away from distractions, and allow your mind to be fully immersed in the task at hand. Method 2. Practice philosophy to control impulsive desires. Have you ever felt anger welling up inside you when someone does something unfair to you, or when things aren't going according to plan? That feeling can truly make you lose control and lead to actions you may later regret. But did you know that emotions, especially anger, can ruin your life if you don't learn how to control them? Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, realized that emotions, particularly anger, can be one of the most dangerous enemies of the human mind. He wrote in one of his famous works, "Anger is not revenge, but self-harm." This means that when we let anger guide our actions, we not only harm others, but we harm ourselves. Why can anger be so dangerous? Anger makes us lose the ability to think rationally. When emotions take over, we no longer view situations objectively. Instead, we act on temporary feelings, which can lead to poor decisions that affect our work, relationships, and even our mental health. Many of us have experienced these moments when anger flares up, and then regret follows when we realize we've hurt someone or missed out on an opportunity simply because of a hasty decision. Seneca offered a simple yet powerful solution to this issue: self-control and reflection. In Stoic philosophy, instead of letting our emotions control our actions, we need to practice reflection and self-control. This doesn't mean denying emotions, but rather accepting them without allowing them to control our actions. One way Seneca recommends is to take time to think before acting. When you feel anger or frustration rising, instead of reacting immediately, pause and ask yourself, can I control this situation? If I act on this emotion right now, will I regret it later? Asking yourself these questions helps you approach the situation more rationally and reduces the chances of making a decision driven by emotion. Remember this: acting hastily under the influence of emotion often leads to irreversible consequences. We need to learn to react, not to retaliate. Sometimes, the right thing to do isn't to respond immediately, but to give yourself time to think and find a more measured way to handle the situation. Real-life example. Let's take a common situation that many people might face. You're working hard, and suddenly, a colleague criticizes your work unfairly. In that moment, you may feel anger, but if you act immediately, you may only escalate the situation, or you may miss the opportunity to improve your work. However, if you remain calm, reflect, and ask yourself whether your colleague really wants to help you improve, or if they're simply stressed out themselves, taking the time to think will give you a clearer perspective. You can then respond more thoughtfully, turning the situation into a chance for self-improvement rather than creating more conflict. When we practice emotional self-control, we not only become stronger in facing adversity, but also develop the ability to think rationally, which helps us become calm and decisive individuals in life. Method 3. Prepare yourself for challenges in advance. Sometimes in life we face challenges that we can't foresee. Have you ever thought about proactively preparing for these challenges? Instead of fearing and avoiding difficult situations, could you proactively visualize the worst-case scenarios and prepare your mind for them? Seneca, with his Stoic philosophy, advises us that visualizing the worst-case scenarios is a powerful method to prepare for life's challenges. This practice, known as negative visualization, is an essential concept in Stoicism. It's not about living in worry or pessimism, but rather about actively imagining the bad things that could happen so that your mind is not caught off guard when they occur. Why can visualizing the worst-case scenarios be helpful? You might wonder, why should we imagine the worst possible outcomes? The answer is simple. When we visualize difficult situations beforehand, we won't be surprised when they happen. Fear and anxiety often arise when we face unpredictable situations. But if we've already mentally prepared ourselves, that feeling of anxiety will lessen significantly. When you're ready to face any challenge, you will feel more confident when the situation actually occurs. Seneca once wrote, "Loss is not something we cannot endure, but because we have not prepared ourselves for it." This means that by visualizing and mentally preparing for difficult situations, you will minimize the shock of facing them. Negative visualization not only helps us prepare, but also helps us practice gratitude. Another major benefit of this practice is that it helps us cultivate gratitude. When you visualize losing everything, whether it's loved ones, your job, or your possessions, you begin to realize the true value of these things. You start to feel more grateful for what you have, and you no longer take them for granted. Furthermore, this gratitude helps you maintain a positive mindset and mental strength throughout your journey of facing challenges. Real-life example. Imagine you're preparing for an important project at work. Instead of only thinking about the best outcomes and hoping that everything will go smoothly, you should imagine the worst-case scenarios. Maybe the client will be unhappy, or maybe some technical issues will arise. Rather than fearing these situations, you start to plan for every possibility. You mentally prepare yourself to face them, and when these problems actually occur, you won't feel shocked or surprised. You've already prepared mentally, and this helps you handle the situation calmly and effectively. In this way, negative visualization not only helps you face challenges, but also strengthens your mental resilience because you've practiced facing difficulties without fear or anxiety. This practice makes you stronger, more resilient, and ready to overcome any obstacles. Method 4. Voluntarily embrace hardship. Sometimes, the best way to become stronger is to actively face challenges. In fact, in modern life, we are always looking for ways to avoid difficulties and uncomfortable feelings. But Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, advises us to do the opposite, actively create challenges for ourselves, because only then can we grow and strengthen our mental resilience. Why could it be a good idea to create challenges for yourself? Seneca believed that facing hardship is not something we should shy away from, but something we should embrace. When you proactively confront challenges, you don't just build endurance, you also strengthen your mental resilience. It's similar to physical exercise. If you don't challenge your body with tough workouts, you can't grow stronger. Likewise, our minds need to be trained through challenges in order to become more resilient. Facing difficult situations helps us learn, grow, and become more confident. Each time you overcome a challenge, you will feel stronger and more capable of dealing with even greater obstacles in the future without being overwhelmed. Hardship is not a barrier, it is an opportunity for growth. One simple yet effective method that Seneca suggests is to actively create challenges for yourself. This doesn't mean creating unnecessary difficulties, but rather putting yourself in situations that require you to overcome fear and push your personal limits. An example of fear and facing it. You've probably felt nervous about standing in front of an audience and speaking publicly. It's one of the most common fears people have. But what would Seneca say if you faced this fear? He would advise you, don't avoid it, face it head on. Because only by confronting that fear can you overcome it and develop courage. Imagine you're someone who doesn't like speaking in public. Instead of avoiding such situations, you could proactively seek opportunities to stand before a group of people and present an idea or give a short presentation. At first, you might feel nervous and anxious, but as you do this repeatedly, you'll notice your confidence and courage growing stronger. In fact, the more you face challenging situations, the more persistent you become, and your ability to endure will increase. Not just in public speaking, but in all of life's challenges, whether it's making tough decisions at work or enduring failure in a relationship, you'll realize that each time you overcome those challenges, you become stronger. This also helps you develop persistence, an invaluable quality in any field. Seneca pointed out that facing challenges not only makes us stronger, but it also helps us grow. By proactively creating challenges and overcoming hardships, you don't just become stronger physically, you also develop mental toughness, ready to confront any adversity that comes your way. Method 5. Avoid becoming a victim. Have you ever felt like everything in life is working against you? When things don't go as planned, when you encounter difficulties, failures, or injustices, it's easy to fall into the mindset of being a victim. However, Seneca, who faced countless challenges in his own life, offers a valuable piece of advice. Don't let yourself become a victim. Instead, learn to identify what you can control and focus on that. Why is that important? We can't control everything in life, that's an obvious truth. Things outside our control, such as changes in the environment, other people's actions, or unexpected events, are unavoidable. But what is important is that we can control how we respond to those situations. Sometimes feelings of helplessness arise when we try to control things that we can't change, while ignoring the things we actually have the power to adjust. Seneca teaches that instead of criticizing the circumstances or blaming others, we should focus on the things we can control, specifically how we think and act. One can change their thoughts and actions, but can't easily change the circumstances. For example, you can't change your boss's decision, but you can change how you work and react to that decision. You can't control the weather, but you can adjust how you prepare for a trip when facing bad weather. So, how can you avoid becoming a victim of circumstances? One of the things Seneca advises us to do is accept the things we cannot change and focus on what we can control. For instance, instead of complaining about not getting promoted at work, you can focus on improving your skills, learning more, or seeking other opportunities. You can't change the past, but you can change how you view it and how you act in the present. Amor fati, the love of fate, is an important concept in Stoic philosophy that Seneca frequently refers to. Amor fati means loving your fate, accepting everything that happens in life, whether good or bad. Instead of feeling injustice or resisting, you should embrace every situation you encounter, because these situations offer opportunities for growth and development. When you practice amor fati, you no longer feel like a victim of life. You understand that every challenge, no matter how painful or uncomfortable, brings valuable lessons and opportunities for growth. Think about some of the difficult situations you've faced in the past. While they were exhausting and tough at the time, looking back, you'll realize that these challenges made you stronger, wiser, and more able to face life with calmness. Real-life example. Let's take the story of a successful entrepreneur. Throughout the development of his company, he faced countless failures, defective products, low sales, employees quitting, things that were completely out of his control. However, instead of blaming the market or circumstances, he chose to learn from these failures, adjust his strategies, and keep pushing forward. He practiced amor fati, embracing all of these challenges as an essential part of his journey. Eventually, he built a successful company and looked back at the difficulties as stepping stones that helped him grow. When you accept your fate and stop criticizing the circumstances, you'll find that you can control your life in a more positive way. This doesn't mean agreeing with everything that happens, but rather accepting it as part of life and finding ways to use it for growth. The key here is to learn to love your fate and focus on the things you can control. Don't let life make you a victim, the one who actively creates your own journey. Method 6. Spend time in solitude. In a world that moves quickly, where every minute is filled with information and social interactions, have you ever taken the time to stop and be alone, just to think and reflect on yourself? Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, gave advice that not everyone may easily accept: spend time in solitude. This may sound strange in a society where we are always seeking connection, but Seneca believed that solitude is a powerful tool that helps us develop intellectual and mental strength. Why is solitude so important? Solitude is not about isolation or being cut off from the world. In fact, solitude is an opportunity to connect more deeply with yourself. In today's busy life, it's easy to get caught up in the flow of work, relationships, and social activities. However, if we don't take time to stop and reflect, we may lose our self-awareness and sense of our core values. Solitude gives us space to ask ourselves, what am I doing? What do I want in life? Seneca believed that solitude is a time when we can listen to ourselves without being influenced by the noise of the outside world. It is a time to reflect on our choices, reassess past decisions, and redefine our goals for the future. Instead of rushing to follow the pace of society, solitude helps us gain a clearer perspective on ourselves. Solitude is also an opportunity to cultivate intellect and mental strength. Solitude doesn't always bring comfort. Sometimes it can make us feel lonely, lost, or as though there's no one around. However, it's in these moments that we can cultivate our mental strength and intellect. Without distractions from the outside, we can truly focus on developing ourselves, learning, and understanding the deeper aspects of our minds. Seneca said, "When you are alone, you will discover the true value of yourself." This is the opportunity to look at everything: your work, relationships, and even your life goals. When you're not distracted by outside influences, you can discover what truly matters to you. Think of a moment in your life when you were alone, took time for yourself, and reflected on your life. When you sit in silence, with no distractions, you can feel peace and gain a clearer understanding of what you truly want. That is when you can develop your intellect, understand yourself more deeply, and strengthen your mental resilience. Real-life example. A prominent example of the benefits of solitude comes from great leaders like Steve Jobs. Jobs often spent time alone to reflect, make important decisions, and reassess the path he was on. Especially during difficult times, Jobs sought solitude to think about long-term goals and the direction of the company. It was his solitude and ability to reflect alone that helped him create groundbreaking products that the world had never seen before. So, solitude is not something we should avoid. In fact, it is an essential part of our personal development journey. Through solitude, we learn how to reconnect with ourselves, gain a better understanding of life, and develop both intellectual and mental strength. Today, we've explored Seneca's Stoic methods lessons that help us build mental strength and live a more meaningful life. From focusing on one task at a time, to visualizing the worst-case scenarios to prepare mentally and proactively confronting challenges, these are all powerful ways to overcome life's obstacles. And remember, solitude is not isolation, it's an opportunity for self-awareness and intellectual growth. These methods aren't just theoretical, they're practical tools you can start using today to change the way you face difficulties in life. By practicing Seneca's Stoic philosophy, you will not only become stronger, but also learn how to live a more autonomous and fulfilling life. Remember, life doesn't always go according to plan, but how we face challenges is what truly matters. We are not victims of our circumstances. We are the ones who actively create our own journey. If you found these methods helpful and want to change the way you approach life, don't hesitate to share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about practicing Stoic philosophy in your daily life? Leave a comment and let us know your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe to the Wisdom Daily channel to explore more profound philosophical lessons that will help you live a stronger and more meaningful life. Let's learn and grow together every day. I truly believe that if you practice these principles, your life will change in ways you never expected.